It happened to me. This is a new feature for the Relationship Help Show. And every now and again, we're going to intersperse stories, people's stories about how they had incidents or were raised by or ran into or were run over by hijackals. And I'm going to start this whole segment as the beginning and launching of this segment by telling you my story. And I'm Dr. Rhoberta Shaler, the Relationship Help Doctor. And the reason that I do the work that I do, the reason that I even created the non-clinical term hijackals, is because I had that in my life. And I had these parents who were just doing the best they could, as all parents do. And I really mean that. If parents knew better, they would do better. But they didn't sometimes. Mine certainly didn't. Perhaps people have chemical imbalances. Perhaps people have been terribly badly abused themselves. Things happen. So this is not about blame. It's about finding out what happened to you, how you internalized it, and how it's affecting your life right now. Not about those terrible people that were in your past. But it is about the messages they gave you about you, and you need to understand that. So when I was young, I was and am an only child, although my parents have passed. And so that's kind of double duty and double jeopardy because you've got two adults who are both focused on you. And if they happen to be in a dysfunctional relationship, as my parents certainly were, they don't look at each other because they don't want to. So the child gets all the focus. And so that was the case, except there was a little wrinkle. My dad didn't care for my mother as a person to spend time with. And I can understand that because I didn't either. But apparently, before she had electroshock therapy, she was fabulous. And she had that electroshock therapy when I was 2 years old, so I didn't know fabulous. I only knew this creature that came back after being away for 2 years, who was harsh and mean and judgmental and picky and competitive and fierce and unpredictable. And when you're 2 years old and you just want to go running to somebody with a big smile and your arms open that you're supposed to call mom, and she kind of looks at you like, oh, what's this? You don't understand. So I certainly didn't understand, and it was very difficult for her because here I was 3.5, 4 years old, and she hadn't spent any time with me in the past 18 to 25 months. I can't remember how long it was because I was 2, but anyway, she came back. My father didn't recognize her. He told me that when I was an adult. He said, I didn't know who she was. She wasn't anything like she had been, nothing like the woman that I married. And I know that the story went that she didn't want children at all. And, I understand that. Her mother died in childbirth. And, she was reluctant. Now, being my mom, she would never admit that. But, that's a likely thing. I can't say, of course, for certain if that happened, but that's a very likely thing. And she was afraid. So she was in labor with me, a child that she didn't want, but she felt she had to have because my father and godparents really were pushing her to have a baby. And she was in labor with me for 7 days. And so she was not very happy with me in that process. And then she ended up having a complete nervous breakdown and going away and having electroshock therapy. So my story is about somebody who I got to know when I was 3.5 or 4 years old, and somebody I was afraid of. But not being a very fearful child, I would stand up to her. So, oh my goodness, a hijackal doesn't like that. And now remember my definition of a hijackal. This is a person who has to hijack the relationship for their own purposes, for their own goodies, to meet their own needs, and then relentlessly scavenge it for power, status, and control. That doesn't matter whether it's a child or an adult or whomever it is. The hijackal is going to do that to the person. One person usually, for sure, and then maybe others, or one person and then move on to another. And that's what happens when you get married several times. So a hijackal, like my mom, she didn't choose to be a hijackal. She became a hijackal from a process that happened to her, but most hijackals don't choose to be hijackals either. It's what happened to them in their early life. It's something that happened in their brain chemistry, something that happened in the home that they were in, and the way they were treated and what they saw and how they learned to survive. So we have to have compassion for the fact that these people didn't set out to be this way, and forgive them for that. I mean, it's not about blame. If you go to a therapist and they set you down and they want to talk about how much your parents were to blame, don't sit there for that. One or two times, yes, you understand that it came from home, and here's how mom and dad behaved. Here's the kind of people that they were. But don't sit there blaming. Tell the story. Don't tell it again, because every time you tell it, it rewounds you on the cellular level. And so it affects you. Now, some people are like me. I was pretty strong child, pretty strong in being able to say, no, that's wrong. No, I won't do that. No, I don't like you. Being pretty strong. But other children are much more passive because there may have been physical abuse involved. Now, I was sexually abused by my father, by his friends, by some other people, and my mother, of course, did nothing. So there was some of that involved. But that wasn't about fear of my mother. My mother was the hijackal. And so how did that affect me? Well, it affects you in lots of ways. And back then, I have grandchildren, so therapy and things were not the same as they are now. We didn't know the things that we know now. There wasn't a book you could turn to, like the books I've written or blogs or things like that. So you don't really understand how it's affecting you. But it's creeping into every area of your life. And it's just your reality. It's just what you think is so. So it's very important, as it was for me, to figure it all out. I figured it out so that it would help my life, but I figured it out because nobody else was figuring it out and helping people so that I could help other people too. And it's a horrible, horrible thing. A hijackal will always make you feel less than because they have to feel more than. They have to be winning. And it's really hard to believe anybody can really love you when you've been raised by a hijackal. It is really a situation where you don't trust anyone, even though you really want to, because that got right into your soul when you were little. You couldn't trust those giants to take care of you or love you. You may have trouble with intimacy. You almost never feel safe. I mean, these are big things that happen. And you're always starved for approval that you can really believe and accept. So, my story is not different than many, many people's, many other people's. Is much worse. But I just wanted to start this segment. It happened to me. What I did with it was turn my life around and find out how to help you turn your life around. If you think you're with a hijackal, go to hijackals.com, download my free ebook, How to Spot a Hijackal. And let's talk soon, because I am uniquely able to help you. I've been there, done that, have the video and the ugly t-shirt, and I was able to tuck them away, not make them who I am, and learn what it took. It was hard learning. I've done it, and I can help you do it too. So go and visit forrelationshiphelp.com if you're ready to get out from behind a childhood and a teenagehood and maybe a few other places in your life where you were treated poorly and maybe by a hijackal. Talk